The new Stochastic Hall of Fame program is bigger and so much better than ever before. Because the days of being able to win only one time a year, well, they're gone. Now you can win year-round just by rocking the Stochastic avatar wherever it is you play. And we've added way more prizes, and better ones too, just to make all of your wins that much sweeter. Even a custom Stochastic Hall of Fame ring and display case to commemorate your most memorable takedowns. And if you're looking for a fresh look on DraftKings or FanDuel, we've created a brand new selection of Stochastic avatars to choose from. And all you have to do to get involved is finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more, no matter the entry fee, and tweet us your wins at Stochastic Hall of Fame. And we're back for another edition of the new and improved Stochastic Hall of Fame. Remember, all you got to do to get involved, download one of the avatars, the beautiful, beautiful new avatars at stochastic.com/HOF. Use them wherever it is you play. Finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more, no matter the entry fee. And tweet us your wins at Stochastic HOF. Remember, we got tiers now: bronze, silver, gold. So every time you play and every time you win, you get something better. So why would you not want to do this? Let's dive into it. First up, Sean Geezy. Are you shocked? Our first gold tier member of the 2023 year is Sean Geezy, and we just started this 2 weeks ago, but nobody's surprised. This guy just wins. Took down the jab stack on DraftKings tonight. Shout out to the Stochastic team. As always, $5,300 win for Sean Geezy. One of the Hall of Fame OGs who just keeps piling up the wins. And how about Alex M? Thanks you guys to the GOATs, $10,000 in the PGA streets, $10K for Alex M, another huge win. And Snays, how about Sean from Chicago? Huge shout out to all the Stochastic team. Took down my first tournament in NBA and finally made the Hall of Fame. What a Sunday. Love to see it, brother. And our old pal Emac, thanks to Stochastic Sims and of course Stochastic legend Sean Geezy, taking the afternoon MLB slate off for a nap, $1,400 for Emac. Stephen Lee out here helping me claw back my losses from Belmont, second place in the Mini-Max. And Chris Logan, Saturday's Xfinity. This lineup would have tied first in the main contest. Still a nice win for $1. Yeah, $175, hell of an ROI, brother. And how about Eagle Nation 3? Huge shout out to Stochastic MLB DFS Sims. The Sims are working. Took down first in last night's MLB action, $150 for Eagle Nation 3. Timothy Holmes, $250 for Weasel 8. Rocking the new, beautiful new Stochastic avatar, might I add. Stochastic's getting it done. Another first. Congrats, Timothy. James Roach, only one of these counts towards my free month, but wanted to show the other just for everyone to see that with Stochastic, it's too easy. $1,000, third place in the 25K showdown zone, and first place in the 5K mini-max. And David A. Russell, the second. I binked another one. Thank you, Fantasy Tips, Matt and Laffy, for the early slate analysis. $600, second place in the solo shot for David. And Dave Oliver, Elway's Army. Dude's creeping on Sean Geezy. I tell you that much. He's creeping because the wins are piling in. You know, Jordan's with me now. He saw it. We got another 10K one rolling in from Dave Oliver for next week's Hall of Fame. But 5,300, 4,600, 5,300, 3,500. Let's go. You guys are the best. Thank you for all your help. The Sims and analysis are unreal. Elway's Army, keeping them piled up. And Jason Barstead, thanks, fellas. Using the tools, I had a monster NBA season, and in 2 weeks playing MLB, I've taken down a 20 max night slate and had 3 top 5s in the main slates. Best team in the industry. Chris Williams. We know you, Chris. It's your favorite Apple guy. Went on YouTube shows, super chatted to hit the like button and bring yourself some good karma. Then I did 2 lineups, split first in the $15 night slate. Been on a heater in MLB and NBA thanks to your great shows. $3,500 for the Apple guy. And BB Dub 27 PGA lineup generator comes through. Nice solo win in the quarter, 10K on FanDuel. Thanks to Stochastic for the awesome tools. Lastly, our boy John B. As much as I love sharing, glad I didn't have to do it here. Thanks for the best tools in the biz. That'll do it for this week. Go to stochastic.com/HOF. Download one of these beautiful new avatars. Use it wherever it is you play. And when you bink, hit us up at Stochastic HOF on the Twitters. We'll see you back here next time. Hey, good afternoon. Welcome to the Stochastic.com MLB early live before lock. We got live before lock coming up after this as well. I think we moved it forward like 30 minutes, right, Jordan? Because the FanDuel has an earlier start time than DraftKings, correct? Yeah. 5:30 Eastern. All right. So that's odd. You know, we've got two, we've got a 3 o'clock and a 5:30, but we're here. And I'm glad you guys could join us. Hey, if you don't mind, take a single second, hit that thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. It goes a long way for us here, and we appreciate you for it in advance. I'm Dave Loughran, Matt Belman. Hey, congrats on a little 17K takedown yesterday, thanks to a certain Pittsburgh Pirates pitcher.
Yeah, pretty unreal. That was not how I was expecting it to go when I messaged you right before that I was playing 100% Luis Ortiz. Just a product of the slate, us doing the show like right before lock, so it got scrambled just a little bit, which obviously worked out for me in that regard. But I mean, probably the best start of his career, maybe the best start he'll ever have.
It's very possible. I mean, what did he go, like 7 scoreless with 7 strikeouts or something?
Something close to that. Yeah, he finished with like 30 fantasy points, a little bit under, which was, I mean, on that slate, massive. So yeah, it was just short of a take on. In the process of like maneuvering my lineups around, I got off of Brandon Marsh, which obviously he was the best hitter on the slate. But in that same lineup, I don't think I would have played Ortiz. So it kind of evened out. And the other pitchers were Eovaldi was not good. Brady Singer was pretty good. So yeah, it was a nice call. And honestly, your shout out of Ortiz. And when we talked about when I looked at the bottom half of that Cincy lineup, that's what got me on him.
Yeah, for sure. The Bozo was pretty damn good too.
Yeah, he was. The Royals, man, they continue to be extremely disappointing. Now they got going a little bit or a decent amount in the 8th last night, put up 5 runs with 2 outs in the 8th. Other than that, though, I was going to message you. It's, Brian Bayo.
Yeah.
His is pronounced, I think, Bayozo.
I knew it. There was something odd going on there. Below
exactly. It makes so much more sense now.
I asked you yesterday. I was like, is there any, like, there's no way it's pronounced like that, right? But maybe, I don't know. Because it's Valente. His name's not John. So
right.
Maybe, I don't know. Bayozo, somebody who knows more about that than I do, tell me. I don't like mispronouncing names, and I generally do a pretty good job of sticking to that. Chris Williams, thanks for gifting those memberships, brother. Appreciate you. Congrats on that win. Yes, I did see you in the Hall of Fame. I know you weren't talking to me, but with Jordan Klein, we recorded that one. So yeah, good stuff. Anyway, I'll spare you the pleasantries here. Laffy's voice prior to shows is like a song to me at this point. All right. Yeah, I get it. I get it, brother. You've been around a long time. You know what I mean? Hopefully it's a pleasant song. Grandpa Steve, hey, Laffy, USA Soccer today on Fox. Yeah, Ben hit me up last night. He goes, you have to bet. And I know we only have a little bit of time, so I'll get right into the slate right now. But he goes, you got to bet soccer with me tonight. I go, all right. He's like, it's going to be a crazy sweat. I got it. So it was a parlay on, Venezuela, Mexico over 1.5 goals. I got in late on it because I didn't see it. So it was -230. I ended up just live betting it at -115. There were 2 penalty kicks. There were 5.5 expected goals in that game, and it finished 1-0. Ben was on full tilt. I was pissed off, but I parlayed it with the USA money line. So now I got to find another spot because that one's dead. But yeah, when Ben Rasa tells you got to bet soccer with him, we do. I stayed up later than I would have preferred for the loss, but nevertheless, let's get into it. We got only 3 games and then 4 games on the later slate. Chris Sale, though, I think we have to start here because it's not like it's cut and dry in many sense, in a lot of sense. Like, yeah, okay. Chicago has a 2.8 run implied total, super low. Chris Sale's been fantastic all year long. Outside of that, what was it, meltdown against Oakland a few weeks ago where I had 93% of him. He's getting 75% projected ownership in our ownership tools, 61% top 2 pitcher probability. He's $11,000 though on DraftKings, and on FanDuel he's 11-4.
So I think he's clearly the top option. Like no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And normally on a slate like this, I would just play 100% sale and figure it out elsewhere. Today, though, I'm not going to do that because the offenses that I want to get to are also expensive. And I don't want to be pigeonholed into playing like just a bunch of really crappy hitters with the stacks I want to play sale like everyone else is going to do. I also think there's just a lot of merit in getting different, off of a 75% projectedly owned pitcher, even though he's by far the best option on the slate. Like usually tournaments are won with bats. Now a guy like Sale certainly has slate breaking upside every time he pitches, but he doesn't break the slate every time he pitches. That's certainly true. So if you're not playing him, you're hoping for, not even like an outlier game, just a good game, where he doesn't absolutely dominant, which is also clearly in the cards against this White Sox lineup, who got carved by Gavin Stone last night, 40 DraftKings points in a complete game shutout. It's nothing about Sale. It's about the price tag. Like, I don't really like any other pitchers on this slate, so I'm tempted to just play all the Sale, but it really, really pigeonholes you because of his exorbitant price tag. It's hard to get different if you play Sale and then one of the chalky offenses.
Do you consider doing anything weird then on this slate with pitching?
Yeah.
I mean, like you have Imanaga at 10-2, so essentially the same price as Sale. He's had a couple really bad starts mixed in over his, he was like up there with Wheeler for, the shortest Cy Young odds, and he got blasted in 2 of his last 5. Not to say that that's any, indication of what's going to happen today. He's at a good park in San Francisco. Understand all of that. No question, but he's also expensive. Then you have Chad Kuhl making a start. Yes, Chad Kuhl, $8,400 Chad Kuhl. He's $5,500 on FanDuel. The $8,400 price point is definitely interesting.
Interesting in that I'm not going to play him, but
interesting in that like $8,400 for Chad Kuhl seems expensive.
Yeah, I'm surprised at how high he is in our top pitcher tool. I'm not buying that. Like I like Atlanta a ton here, and it does remind me of that slate that we had over the weekend, and I mentioned it yesterday, where you had the Phillies who are crazy expensive, and then I can't remember the expensive pitching on that slate, but today you've got the Braves who are pretty expensive up top, aside from Kalanick, who is going to be very chalky and is underpriced, and then Sale. So I think there's just a lot of merit in getting different, at least in one of those spots on a slate like today. It's only a 3-game slate.
Yeah, I know. It's a 3-game slate where you have Sale and Imanaga, you have Hicks, Montgomery, Kuhl, and this David Festa fella. Now this is interesting because minor league, you were talking really great strikeout stuff at the AAA level. I mean, really good. This season, in about 60 innings pitched in AAA, what do you have? 35% strikeout rate, 35% K rate, pretty significant numbers. 16.8% swinging strike rate. When you look at it, also like not a fly ball pitcher, not a ton of hard contact. There's something to be said about the upside here at this price point. Now, you're also just, throwing a guy into the fire. You have no idea what you're going to get. Like sometimes you just throw projections out the window, but he is somebody that we know has legitimate strikeout upside. Then the question just becomes like, is he worth it at that price point? Because he's actually the cheapest pitcher on the slate on DraftKings, at least.
Yeah, I think he looks like the best option overall, honestly, even over Sale for me because of that price point. Certainly a lot more risk. Like we don't know who he is at the major league level, but he showed big signs of being a productive DFS producer in the minor leagues. Arizona is a lot better against left-handed pitching. He's a highly regarded prospect. Like it could certainly blow up in your face. Like the Arizona stack against him is more than viable because we see this all the time. Talented arms come up and get destroyed. But on paper, I like the Festa side. And I think there's more of a chance he's underpriced than overpriced, given the strikeout upside. Maybe I'm completely off. I don't think anyone really knows, but that's the side I'm willing to die on here.
Willing to die on how?
Well, I just meant like I'm going to play him today. So like I'm fully cognizant that he could get destroyed because he's never made a major league start before. And Arizona's got a good lineup, but he's the second cheapest pitcher on the slate. I don't really like any other pitching options aside from Sale. You've got guys like Jordan Hicks getting a lot of love. I'm not about that one at all, considering his underlying numbers are pretty horrific. Imanaga, as you mentioned, is the same price as Sale. I think he stands out, and I'm willing to roll with him pretty hard today.
What would you be happy with from him?
15.
Pretty much, right? Because it's also completely like dependent on what the rest of the slate plays out.
Right.
I mean, Jordan Hicks has Chicago. He's getting almost 50%. You know, Chicago against righties is, you know, a higher K team in baseball. Imanaga's getting 30. Festa's getting 27. Jordan Montgomery, 17. Chad Kuhl's getting 2%. All right. So if we're really to get into the weeds here and talk about, you know, not playing cash games, but, you know, can this win you a tournament? The whole Chad Kuhl thing is wild because the Sims are giving a decent amount of Chad Kuhl today, like a decent amount of Chad Kuhl. And it really just makes you wonder how much of this just comes down to the fact that the Braves are wildly popular for one, and that Chad Kuhl's getting zero ownership whatsoever. And some of these other pitchers are super expensive. I mean, I wish I could tell you exactly what it was because I really don't know. But the Sims, which factor all of that in and simulate these contests tens of thousands of times over, have a lot of Chad Kuhl in here. You know, I remember we had the question in chat a few weeks ago. It's like, why am I getting Hogan Harris in the Sims? And then Hogan Harris ended up being the single pitcher on that 3-game early slate that you needed. And if you didn't have him, you weren't winning. Sometimes it just plays like that, where it's more so a leverage spot than anything else.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really understand it either. He's actually the third most expensive pitcher on the slate. So more than Hicks, Vesta, and Montgomery. I don't get it. Like, I really don't get it.
I think what I would probably do here is just cap him. Like, allow myself to get some. It would still get me well above the field, right? Like, if we really only have Chad Kuhl getting 3% or so on, just like wildly unpopular, then I'd be perfectly fine getting some, because at this point, what does it actually matter? You know, if you're playing a lot of lineups, it doesn't take a lot to get over the field there. But aside from that, yeah, I don't want my entire day to be contingent upon whether or not Chad Kuhl gets rocked against Atlanta. But I think we can both agree that looking at player ownership on this slate, Atlanta has crazy ownership. Like Sean Murphy, 37%, Kelenic, 33%, Wall, 30%, Olsen, 27, Arcia, 26, Riley, 26. All of these guys are super popular.
Yeah, and it makes sense because Kuhl stinks. Like Atlanta has been a letdown, and we saw Matthew Liberatore, who was unowned last night, like in the higher dollar stuff. I think he was the best pitcher, or aside from Gavin Stone, the second best pitcher on the slate, which is just wild. This is one, and we don't see these like too often like this, but if I knew nothing about baseball and I was just looking at the tools trying to build lineups, I would be all over Chad Kuhl because he has a 27% chance of being a top 2 pitcher and he's getting 3% ownership. Like, I'm smart enough to recognize that the Sims and all that stuff is smarter than me. So sometimes you don't need to know why. You know what I mean?
Yeah, look, it's just it's a weird spot, right? Because you're still he's not very good. We know that. Like he probably doesn't last very long. He's overpriced. We know that. So let me pose the question to you this way, and you guys in chat as well. This is, I think, what makes the 3-game slates a lot more, nuanced than a 10-gamer, where it's like, hey, just don't touch that guy. How much of the field are you wiping out if Chad Kuhl has a good start and you're overweight on him, and knowing that it wouldn't just be being overweight on a Chad Kuhl, but it would be being underweight on Atlanta?
Yeah, that's a huge part of it. I think that you get so much leverage. Like, not only is he coming in as a 27% chance of being a top 2 pitcher, but presuming he's a top 2 pitcher, the Atlanta stack probably failed and they're going to be chalky. So I get that. If he were like the cheapest pitcher on the slate, like Montgomery is, I'd play him. But I think I'd rather play Montgomery because he's 1,600 cheaper, and Minnesota is also going to be really popular. And even though Montgomery started the season pretty shitty, he's been a lot better recently. And he's just a much better pitcher than Chad Kuhl is. So I just, maybe that's foolish of me. I personally like Festa and Montgomery more than Kuhl, but clearly not as much leverage. And the tools would say, again, I'm wrong for that.
It's gonna be nuts if he ends up being the guy you need. Jake DeWitt said, "Wolf Sims tool giving me 60% of a 2% Kuhl." Make sure too, Jake, like if you're in the contest generator and you generate those contests, make sure to check to make sure that you don't have to boost up or down that ownership. Because when I did, it was like I had to give it a negative boost twice on ownership to level it out, to get that ownership matched with the pool exposure. That could potentially bring it down a little bit too. But either way, I mean, I have no problem if you're like, listen, I'm capping. If you're using the Sims or whatever, and you're like, I'm capping him. I can't. I don't want to get to that much. I would totally Yeah. So I went back, Jake, and I made sure to level that out, and I'm getting less Chad Kuhl now. Like Jordan, I assume you just ran a, just a factory settings, right? Without making any adjustments in the contest generator. Yeah. So I'm getting less Chad Kuhl now. Chris Sale, my highest exposed, but still only 51%. And I still am getting to Chad Kuhl. So yeah, it's interesting. The only guy I'm not getting a ton of is David Festa. Like everyone else is 28% and higher for me, Matt. Hicks, Montgomery, Imanaga, Kuhl, and Sale from lowest to highest. But getting a lot of all of them. And as far as stacks are concerned, yeah, you're going to get a lot of Atlanta. I don't see why you wouldn't. But also, I'm pretty spread out for stacks, like Chicago, Arizona, Atlanta, White Sox. I have a pretty even distribution of most of those. And then I have like a lot of 3-man Chicago, a lot of 3-man Arizona and stuff like that. So not everything is being like, I'm not overly heavy on Atlanta. I'll tell you that right now. I am, as far as like getting a good amount of them 3, 4, and 5. But if you combine 3, 4, and 5-man stacks for me, it's like, let's see, 25%, which is still below the field for sure.
I think that's a byproduct of having Sale. Like, it's really hard to stack Atlanta with Sale, considering their price tags, even with a cheaper pitcher. Man, the cool thing to me, and I was literally talking about Chad Kuhl, but you could also say the cool thing to me is that if we were doing a show and this was a morning show and this slate were like tonight, I think this were wrong. Like there was an error in here and it was going to change during the day. Now, it's clearly not. I just don't understand what I'm missing here because Kuhl is not good. He's never been good.
Nope.
His lowest expected ERA in the past like 6 years is 4.8. He's not good. So maybe that doesn't really matter, but I just don't understand. And the other thing I was going to say about Festa, and I think you'll agree with this, as I mentioned earlier, I'm smart enough to recognize that the tools know more than I do. But I do think players like Festa are harder for the tools to get a full read on, because they haven't pitched yet.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. That's one of those things where, like, I think if you wanted to just artificially boost somebody like Festa, I don't see any issues with that whatsoever. Because look, he could go. This is one of those spots where I like Arizona, and I have no problem with Festa. He could
Yeah,
come out
same.
there. I mean, what, his first career major league appearance, right?
Yep.
Like, he could come out there and get tuned up or not. Or he goes out there and his strikeout stuff is just electric. But it's not binary. Like, it's not one or the other. I mean, clearly it's going to likely be one of the other, but the decision isn't one or the other. You know, it's not, both of them are in decent spots. What's their total? What's their implied total against Festa? 4.4. It's not even high.
No, Festa's like good. I mean, he's actually the ranked number 100 prospect in the majors. So like he comes up with, you know, not a lot of hype, but a decent amount of pedigree.
Yeah. Like, if you had to rank these pitchers right now, right? If you had to rank them, are you ranking them by ownership? Not not saying naturally you do that, but your personal preference on them. Are you ranking them by ownership? Sale, Hicks, Imanaga,
No,
Festa, Montgomery, Chad Cool.
not even close for me personally.
Well, let's hear it then. Help the
So
people
for
out
me,
here.
Sale is one for sure.
Okay. Yep.
Two, I'm gonna say Festa, so cheap, a lot of unknown, but we're talking about winning tournaments here. So 7,300 for Festa. Number three, because my number one is Sale and I like expensive bats. My number three is Jordan Montgomery. Again, aside from Sale and Imanaga, you could say he's the best overall pitcher on the slate. Struggled so far to start the year, but has gotten into better form recently. And I think you can attribute his slow start to having no spring training. So not surprising that he's getting better as the season goes on. Those are my top three. I don't want to play Hicks as the second highest owned pitcher on the slate. Imanaga's too expensive for me. We just talked about Cool.
Yeah. So, all right. So your 2 and 3 are two of the lower, like, they're the, what, fourth and fifth lowest owned pitchers on the slate.
Yeah, I'll play Festa and Montgomery together a little bit and just spend up on bats.
Jordan Hicks, unsurprisingly, has been very good at home. You know, it's a great park. The problem is there's just not a ton of strikeout stuff there. I don't have a problem with him though. Like, I think the toughest pitcher to get to is Shota Imanaga. Like, that to me is the toughest guy to get to, only because he's so closely priced to Chris Sale.
I think most people would say the hardest is Cool.
It's cool,
because he's,
sure, but you already know where I'm at.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So the only thing I'd say about Imanaga is because I think the pitching options are so weak outside of Sale and Imanaga, a lot of people will just be like, yeah, he's too closely priced to Sale, but I'll just play them together and play cheap bats, you know?
How practical is that?
I guess decently practical because Imanaga is projected to be 35% owned.
Yeah.
That's not where I want to go, but I don't think you're crazy for having that frame of mind, you know?
I hear you. Yeah. It sucks because Jordan Hicks at home, 378 xFIP is fine. 280 WOBA against. All of those numbers look good, but 17% strikeout rate. Ugh.
Due for some pretty major regression also.
Let me go into my lineups and see what type of lineups I have if I have them with Sale and I always love doing this kind of process here with Sale and Imanaga.
I bet you're not getting much of that at all.
Let's see. Out of 150 starred lineups or favorited lineups, I have 6.
Yeah, there's good bats on this slate, and some of them are priced up. And if you play Imanaga and Sale, I'm not saying it can't win, but I think a lot of the lineups are going to look similar.
Yeah. One of them is a 5-2 Atlanta stack, Atlanta and Cubs stack. How about that?
Probably all bottom of the lineup.
Yeah. So it's in that lineup, you've got Olsen, Kellenic, Murphy, Wall. I mean, it's actually not crazy when you think about it. Murphy's batting 6th. Kellenic's batting leadoff. Duvall's batting 8th, so there's that. Wall's batting 7th.
So I agree with you. It's not
Olsen's
crazy.
batting cleanup. Sorry, go ahead.
No, so I agree with you, and it's not surprising. And that's how you're going to be able to roster those two guys together. You'll be able to stack the Braves. But what I don't think people will be able to do, or will be sacrificing to do, is instead of Wall and Duvall, Albies and Ozuna. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I clearly want Albies and Ozuna. You just have to pay elsewhere to get them.
For sure. I mean, looking at this, as I mentioned, only 6 of those lineups contain Sale and Imanaga. The rest of them, it's just like Sale or Imanaga and another. I do have, what did I say, 30% Imanaga right now. So not, hold on, 35%. So I'm right with the field there for sure. For sure. And then when you start looking at how those lineups look like the Sale lineups and the Imanaga, Cubs, Minnesota, Cubs, San Francisco. That's kind of the thing. I mean, if you're not going to Atlanta, let me ask you this. If you're not going to Atlanta, which is clearly the, on paper, the best stack, like the chalk stack, where are you going? Are there any clear cut, kind of definitive best stacks, best alternatives, or are you just spreading it around?
I don't think there's any clear cut answer. For me personally, I like the Cubs the best. They're coming in the second lowest owned, ahead of only the White Sox. They're the second highest leverage team on the slate, behind only the White Sox. And they're facing Jordan Hicks, who's projected to be really popular. So all things aligned to the Cubs for me. I like the Cubs here more than the D-backs, Twins, and Giants for sure. But I think the Twins, Diamondbacks, and Cubs all look pretty similar. I think you could see the Twins as high or even higher owned than a lot of the Braves, considering their price tags. I prefer the Braves over Chalky Twins, and then the Cubs are my second favorite stack.
I will say the Sims makes it very easy to, not have to make a lot of those difficult decisions on your own. It does all like the impossible work that you can't really compute by yourself behind the scenes. With these small slates, we've seen how valuable it's been this season. So I'm going to lean on it. And if you guys ever want to check it out, link in the description and in the chat. You can do a week or a month, any of that, to grab the Sims, to get all of the other tools, top stacks tool, top pitchers, top hitters tool, ownership, player projections, post contest simulator, the late swap tool, which like you can late swap everything. Ton of scratches this year too. Do it in like 2 minutes, in and out, boom. Go on about your business. Or if you just decide like, hey, you know what? I don't want to pay for it right now. I'm going to try and win a tournament and get a free month or free month of everything. Just go to stochastic.com/avatar. That's all. Download one of those beautiful new avatars. Upload it wherever it is you play. DraftKings, FanDuel. Finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more. Tweet us your wins at Stochastic HOF and jump in. You can win a free month. And if you win again in a calendar year, free month plus a free week of another sport. Win 3 times, you get the free month of Sims All Access monthly, $550 value. There's some other good stuff. Just go to the page, stochastic.com/HOF. Check it all out. It's pretty cool. Anyway, we got a few minutes, Matt. So I want to dive in a little bit more to the stacking options because I think we covered pitching pretty tightly at this point. But just looking now at these stacks, Atlanta, we talked about it. If you guys are just jumping in, Atlanta getting wild ownership, like not just, how you always say 1 or 2 players can skew it. This whole team is popular, even the bottom of the order. Aside from that though, like looking at the 5 stack ownership, check this out. We're projecting 20% ownership on 5-man stacks for Atlanta. That's a huge number. Not like collectively 3, 4, 5-man stacks alone. We're projecting 20% ownership.
It's a 3-game slate. So yeah, that is high, but like, I do think they're by far the best
I'm
stack
not
on the
saying
slate.
not to. I'm not saying what
No,
not to play him. What I'm suggesting is that all of these other teams, save for Minnesota, which is up there at 12, are just like mid to low single digits.
so I'm totally with you there. And for me, it goes back to kind of what I said a few minutes ago. Like everyone in this lineup is getting love. But when we're seeing, they've got 4 outfielders today: Kellenic, Wall, Duvall, and Ozuna. Ozuna is by far the lowest projected owned. He's by far the best guy. Like, that's who I want. And that's such an easy way to get different. Not only not sacrificing upside, you're gaining upside with Ozuna. So weird slate where the bottom of Atlanta's lineup is getting, in a lot of cases, more love than the top half because of pricing.
Right. Would you consider just, all right, so let's say you're playing a single entry, mid to high stakes. Would you consider just not full stacking, going like 3-2-2 or something, or 2-2 in individual bats? Anything like that? Like any other process on a 3-gamer that plays for you here?
Yeah, for sure. I don't think you have to. And again, every slate is different for me, so I don't like to be in those boxes. And I definitely consider a 3-2-2 if that was what fit or if that's what I preferred on that given day. Today, I don't mind that at all. I do like the idea, and that's why I'm getting to cheap pitching, of 5-manning like the expensive Braves. And I like the Cubs, who are also pricey up top. Bellinger's very expensive. Morel, Suzuki. I like expensive bats on this slate where a lot of people are going to use, Sale, maybe Imanaga with Sale, and then spend down on bats. I also think using a White Sox or two, I should say, bat against Sale in Sale lineups isn't crazy at all. Like, yeah, their run total is crazy low, but if you're trying to win tournaments, you're going to need outliers to occur clearly. And maybe those 2 runs are solo home runs. Chicago certainly has power from the right side. And it's a 3-game slate. Like, if Sale strikes out 10, he's going to be viable unless he just gets absolutely destroyed. Even if he gives up 4 runs, 4 solo home runs, Sale will still be the best pitcher on the slate. So I definitely think you can think outside the box on slates like this, especially when you've got a pitcher so expensive and then an offense that's also really expensive to pair with him.
I don't mind your call on Jordan Montgomery now that I look at it. Like he had those brutal starts, said, I feel like a piece of crap after that one game. I actually felt bad. It's just such a, like, if you were to be like, I fucking suck, then you're like, yeah, all right. But when you say I feel like a piece of crap, I mean, come on, don't do that to us, man. That's like what an 8-year-old says. And you're like, oh, buddy, it's going to be all right. But he has been better. I wouldn't say he's been great. Concern here is he hasn't thrown 90 pitches since mid-May. I don't know if that's just a product of, 84 pitches through 5, 83 pitches through 6, but most starting pitchers that are, getting paid what he's getting paid, you throw 83 pitches through 6, guess who's coming out for the 7th? Maybe they pull you after you give up a hit with 1 out, but that's a little bit concerning. It's like if this guy goes 5 innings and 80 pitches, he's not coming back out.
Yeah. I think there's certainly question marks baked in there.
But he's cheap though, and he's getting very little ownership. I'm not saying it matters. It's just one of those things.
No, I'm with you. I see eye to eye there. Like, yeah, I think that if he were getting ownership, that's something I would be looking more at. But on this slate, only 5 other pitchers, he's not getting love. I'm okay with him not having like the upside that I would normally want him to have on a bigger slate. And also, I think you can attribute that to just his having no spring training. And that maybe not today, but maybe gets built up over time.
You would hope so. But yeah, I'm going to cap Chad Kuhl exposure for sure. For sure. There's just no need to have that much when he's not owned. Eric Johnson has a good question before we get out of here. Guys, remember, 5:30 Eastern, since the FanDuel slate starts earlier, 5:30 Eastern for the 4-game slate live before lock right here on YouTube. If you're going to be playing that one. He said, can I just stack the White Sox? What are your thoughts on a White Sox stack? Clearly the lowest top stack probability. They're very, they're positively leveraged in the tools. Man, if you stack the White Sox, or sorry, if you had stacked the A's against Chris Sale 4 starts ago, which was also on an abbreviated slate, if you had stacked the White Sox against Sale, you were making all the money that day, I would assume. Gave up 2 home runs, 8 runs on 9 hits in 4 innings, got annihilated. That is clearly the exception to the rule. But sometimes in DF, not sometimes, almost all the time, Matt, in DFS, to win a tournament, you need exception to the rule type performances across the board,
Yeah, I certainly do know. Yeah, I don't hate it just because of everything you just said. The difference for me between this slate and the Oakland slate, and I didn't play Oakland that day, was that was a bigger slate. Not a huge slate, but it was bigger. I think that was like a Saturday afternoon slate.
It was like 6 games though, right? It wasn't huge, right?
Like no one played Oakland that day though. Like
For
today.
Sure. Oh, no, I get that. Yeah.
Like there's the ownership where like there's going to be some people that just play the White Sox because Sale's going to be that highly owned. And if they really end up 5 to 6%, I think they're worth playing here. But I have a feeling they, at least like their good bats, come in like 8 to 10%, which means I don't love them as a full stack, but I do like them as one-offs, as I mentioned earlier, for trying to pick out a home run or two. Okay. I think if you play them, it's everything you just said. Like you're not playing them because you think they're good. You're playing them because of the game theory in DFS. And if they happen to catch one of Sale's, 3 or 4 really bad starts on the year, it's an easy path to the top. So I get that for sure.
The crazy thing is though, that they're so cheap that like the guy you'd want to pay up for in a White Sox stack is Chris Sale.
That's what I don't hate it. Like I don't want to stack them, but using
right
2, 3, you know what I mean? It
gets you wildly different if you had like 1 or 2 dirt cheap White Sox in there. Even like that's the crazy thing. If you played Chris Sale and you had, a White Sox or 2 or whatever, but then a 5-man Atlanta stack, you're still getting to the best plays on the slate and being different. Like Sale could still give up 2 runs and have 11 strikeouts.
You could give up 4 runs.
You have there for sure. It's interesting.
Like, I'm not saying it's going to work out for sure, like, because clearly no one knows that. And I don't think stuff like that is viable as much as people want it to be. But on slates like this, it is.
Yeah. 3 games. Yep. Hey, appreciate you guys hanging out live before lock at 5:30 Eastern time. Follow Matt, Fantasy Tips Matt. I'm at Lofty_D. Good luck today. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Main slate, like Friday, you're going to have that big slate. So we'll see you at 11 for the strategy show right here on the Stochastic YouTubes. Later, everybody.